30 years ago, a man came to White Marsh, Maryland, with a vision to start a church that would honor the Lord Jesus Christ. That man was Pastor Brewer.
After surveying the Baltimore area and just seeing where there was a need for a church and talking to the area independent Baptist churches, all saying they were going to start a church in this area but hadn't pursued it, and after spending much time in prayer, we felt that White Marsh was the place to be. We left Lynchburg, Virginia in February of 1983. I moved my family, Sherry, 2 babies, Josh and Sarah, and we came here to the Baltimore area and realized that there was a need for a church to be in White Marsh, Maryland, and we started the first service April the 10th, 1983.
And of course, with any great work comes humble beginnings.
Our first meeting place was in an American Legion Hall on Silver Lake Drive off of Silver Spring Road. It was at the dead end. That was interesting because there was 2 banquet halls. There was also a bar attached to those halls. And sometimes there was competition going on. We were in one hall trying to have a church service, and they'd be having a band in the other one and having a crab feast. And so we figured out after a few months it wasn't going to work.
From the American Legion Hall, the church began to meet in Laurel Lee Community Center on Philadelphia Road.
I was just out every day riding around, looking, praying where we could find another place to meet. And I saw that Baltimore County had the community center at the corner of Lloyd Avenue and Philadelphia Road. So we investigated and found out it was available.
I had a friend of mine that told me about a young preacher that's starting a new church at Laurel Lee Community Building. It was a four-room schoolhouse. It was old. We had to set up chairs every time we had service, and the preacher got his pulpit out, and then we put it back in the cupboard when we were finished.
That was good because rent was $10 a week. So for a new church, that was a big help financially. It was a place for us to get started because we had a nice meeting room where we could have church, and then there were a couple other rooms that they used for a tot program that they opened up for us to use for a couple Sunday school classes. So it was a good place to get started.
Soon enough, the church was growing to the point where they had to move again, and so they found the White Marsh Daycare Center on Winding Way.
One of our church members said, I have a friend who owns a daycare center, and she said she may be interested in renting it out to us, so we looked at the White Marsh Child Care Center at the end of Winding Way, and it worked out good. Space-wise was great because we had 6 pretty good-sized rooms to meet in, and we could hold church services and have Sunday school. The drawback was you had to move a lot of stuff around every week. Take it down, put it back. Take it down, put it back.
The daycare was an improvement to us. It was larger. It had, but one of the things we had to do, we had to set up chairs every time. We had to, there was things hanging from the ceiling, like little animal, pictures of animals and stuff like that. We had to tack them up in the ceiling.
After I got out of the Air Force and went back home to live in Parkville, I was looking for a church and immediately just went to the first nearby church, which was Parkville Baptist, and I met Bobby Chapura, who was called Bobby C, and together with him we started doing a door-to-door witnessing out of the church. But in our friendship, he told me about New Life Baptist Church. So my wife and I visited at the daycare center, and we became members and started attending regularly, and then Bobby C. eventually followed us over and he became a member. The daycare center was exciting because it was something new, it was something growing. There was a lot of activity going on, a lot of chairs to pick up and to put back, but it was the friendship of the people and the fellowship and the preaching that was really exciting.
And once again, because of the blessings of God, they grew and had to move. But where would they go?
Our first building program began by me challenging our people that we were homeless and we would need a place of our own. And believe it or not, I brought in an apple juice jar and challenged our people to fill it up with change. And then we took all that change and we opened up a bank account, a building fund. And then we had a thermometer drawn up, and once we just watched it climb, and God began to bless, and we got it up to $30,000.
And God brought us from there to down to that community center. And when we outgrew that, to a daycare center. And it was in that daycare center where we had a vision. We're going to buy property and build a building so we can reach more people with the gospel.
I wasn't raised in a Christian, what I know now to be a Christian household. So I've never seen a building program, so it was just kind of awesome.
Mr. Rutherford owned a few acres right behind the Laurel Community Center where the church had met prior to the daycare center.
We found this property through Larry Hall. Larry Hall was a trustee in our church. He would say to me, "I think there's some land behind my home." And I couldn't figure out where it was, but anyway, one day I went out and he showed me, and it was just it looked like a pig path. You could barely drive your car up Lloyd Avenue. That's how bad it was. So we drove back there and got out and walked around. So we went to Baltimore County to find out who owned it, and found out that Mr. Rutherford and his wife owned that property, and we called them and went to their house and said, "We'd like to buy your property."
We bought the ground from Richard Rutherford, and it was like 1 year we could only pay the interest on the loan because that's all we could afford. Finally, we made a loan to pay him and for the ground, and then we built this building in about 1995.
Went through the process with Baltimore County to find out would they allow a church to be built on this property. It had to pass perk test and all that, which people in the neighborhood said wouldn't happen, but it did. They dug 6 holes and all 6 of them passed the perk test. So to me, that was a sign God wanted us here. The Sunday we had groundbreaking service. We held our service at the White Marsh Child Care Center that morning. Everybody got in their cars. We drove over here to the property, and we had already cleared some land out, and to have groundbreaking that day. Of course, they were calling for a blizzard that Sunday in January. So anyway, the snowstorm did come right to the Key Bridge and stopped. And if you look at all the pictures of that day, it's sunny. It was cold, and but there was no snow. Beautiful sunny day, and it was exciting to make that journey from the daycare center over here to the property on Lloyd Avenue, and to dig some holes in the ground for the actual groundbreaking.
New Life Baptist Church had begun its first building program.
We met a guy, Mr. Edwards, and he built buildings for churches. That's all he did. He just simply built church buildings, and somebody kept telling me, you need to talk to this guy. And so we did. We met with him, and he said, how much money you got in the bank? And he said, okay, this is what I think you can build, and if you want me to build for you, you can't go past that. So this building cost about $103,000. That's just the building itself. And so, hey, God gave us a beautiful winter. No snowstorms, nice mild weather, and worked out great.
The first phase was permits and roadblocks, different things we had to go through, and it was a real chore. And when we got this building, it was a real blessing.
We would have men in our church who led the building project. A guy named Bob Gray headed it up, and so we'd have work days, and we just say, hey, on this day we're going to put the flooring in, or this day we're going to dig the foundation, or this day we're going to pour the concrete in the basement. And whoever could would take off, and we'd come over here and work, and the women of the church would fix lunch and bring it to us, and we would work. We had kids, teenagers, men and women of all age involved. We basically built what we could ourselves.
I was just volunteering when I could, but just watching how things came together, how the building came together from scratch, and going there for the first time to hear preaching and teaching, and just looking forward to the next level.
And after a few years, God had provided a place for New Life Baptist Church to meet, a place they could all call home.
We started building in January of '95, and we held our first service in June of that year, 1995. There was a lot of excitement about the first service in this building because for once we are no longer homeless. And we couldn't use the basement at first. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks later we could use the downstairs. But so we just had morning service and limited Sunday school. And that first Sunday I saw people walk in our building, come to our church service I had never seen before. And they came because somebody said we were building a new building. It was amazing.
Look what God did. Amen? Look what God did. He took a handful of people, about 50 people, and through us, God just blessed His people, and they emptied their pockets, and look at this.
Soon enough, God had moved and worked, and New Life began to be shaped and molded into a wonderful church family.
We put a sign up so people would know we were here. We knocked on doors. And it was exciting because, again, we were no longer homeless. We had a place of our own. Then when we got the access to the downstairs, we built Sunday school rooms, and so we were able to begin to expand Sunday school, have children's church. We had a platform where I could preach from, the choir could sing from. For once we had a piano that we bought brand new that actually was in tune. And no more setting up, no more taking down. We had nice, comfortable chairs, no more folding metal chairs that everybody was tired of sitting on. And for once, we could come to church and leave it set up.